Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I want to take a look at new abilities coming in World of Warcraft Shadowlands. In WoW Shadowlands, the new upcoming expansion, sometime nowhere near soon, we are going to be choosing to join different covenants. Covenants are going to be some of the ruling factions of the Shadowlands, and if you want to think of them as order halls from Legion, that's basically what they are. It's an order hall that you choose to join. These covenants come with different rewards, such as cosmetics like different types of transmog, different types of mounts, but also different types of class-specific covenant abilities. And today we're going to be taking a look at the covenant of the Kyrian and the class-specific abilities that those come with. At the end of the video, I do want to dive deep more onto Blizzard's philosophy on class design for Shadowlands, but first, let's take a look at the abilities. We're gonna start them all in alphabetical order. First of all, we have the Death Knight with the ability of Shackle the Unworthy. Admonish the target for the past transgressions, reducing the damage they deal to you by 5%, dealing 12,000 arcane damage over 14 seconds. Shackle the Unworthy's cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds when you damage the affected enemy with a rune spending attack. It's a 1-minute cooldown ability, but the more runes you can sink in during this dot's uptime, the faster you can get this damage over time ability back. It's nice that it makes the enemy deal less damage to you, as a Death Knight sometimes survivability is a question since you're not that mobile, but it also will give you that tankiness feel to your Death Knight, whether you're a Blood Death Knight or Frost or Unholy. The arcane damage for this also will not benefit Frost or Unholy. It's a strong dot that doesn't really favor one spec over the other, and the playstyles that it can offer for Frost or Unholy, it might be better to use this ability with cooldown so you can get it back faster and faster and faster. Then we have the Demon Hunter with an Elysian Decree. Carve runes into the ground in front of you, which detonate and deal a certain amount of arcane damage, and shatter 3 lesser soul fragments from enemies. Instant 1-minute cooldown. This does seem like an AoE ability. It also does give you soul fragments. So if you're a Demon Hunter Havoc, you can use the soul fragments to get some of your ability cooldowns or even resources back faster. So it has a couple playstyles that it can work with. Complementary to the tank spec, the less soul fragments give you healing, so this is an on-demand heal to deal also a little bit of AoE damage, which is something Demon Hunters are already pretty good at. Then we have the Droid, and this one really does try to adjust depending on the spec that you are playing. Druid's ability is called Purity's Veil. Fill the target area with anima for 16 seconds. With the Veil, your intellect or agility and stamina are increased by 20%, and you gain a certain buff every 4 seconds. For Balanced Druid, it is Solar Empowerment. For Feral, it is Clear Casting. For Resto, it's Clear Casting. And for Guardian, it is Gore. It does have an area effect, and you can choose where you want to apply this area. It has a 2-minute cooldown, and it's quite powerful for when it comes to the burst. I like how it plays to some of the different buffs that every spec plays with. Then we have the Hunters, and we have Resonance Trap. Of course, Hunters will have something that plays around their traps. Throws a resonant trap at a target location that fills the area with echoing anima for 10 seconds when the first enemy approaches it. The effect causes your attacks to ignore line of sight to enemies in the area, and you have 30% increased critical strike chance against them. The trap will exist for 1 minute. In a sense, as a hunter, you can use this for PvP, and place it behind a line of sight area where a healer might want to retreat to. As soon as they trip the trap, you can punish them for hanging out in the area. The trap does work as long as the enemy sits inside of the zone, however, and I feel like in dungeons and raids, this could be quite useful to set the trap ahead of time, where you know the tank is going to pull the boss to a certain side of the room, so you'll put the trap there, you'll trip the trap the first time, and since it will be on cooldown, you'll be able to use it quite shortly after. Quite a cool trap, just I don't really know how the range and the LOS side thing is going to work for survival hunters. Then we have the Mage with Radiant Spark. Conjure a Radiant Spark that causes X amount of arcane damage instantly and additional X amount of arcane damage over 8 seconds. The target takes 25% extra damage from your direct damage and spells, stacking each time they are struck. This effect ends after 4 spells. So with this ability, it's a pretty short cooldown, 30 seconds, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast, and you'll use it, and you will want to combo your abilities as a mage to make sure your strongest ability ends up being the 4th spell. Whether it is a Glacial Spike for Frost Mage, whether it's a Pyroblast or a Meteor by Fire Mage, or if it's yet another Arcane Blast from your Arcane Mage. Either way, kind of a cool combo. Then we have the Monk, and this one is going to give you a buff and a special effect depending on your spec. The buff itself is Weapons of Order. For the next 30 seconds, your mastery is increased by 15%. For Windwalker, additionally, Rising Sun Kick cooldown is reset instantly, and your Rising Sun Kick reduces the cost of your chi-based abilities by 1 for 5 seconds. For Mistweaver, additionally resets the Essence Font ability and instantly heals nearby allies for 12k health on channel start and end of Essence Font. For Boommaster, Keg Smash cooldown is instantly reset, and enemies struck by Keg Smash take 5% increased damage from you for 8 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Pretty big ability, 30-second duration, which is quite long, but a 2-minute cooldown. Then we have the Paladin, called Divine Toll. Instantly cast Holy Shock, or Avenger's Shield, or Judgment on all valid targets within 30 yards, based on your current spec. So if you're a tank, a bunch of shields will get thrown out. Those shields will silence your enemies. If you are a Holy Paladin, I guess you will heal allies and Holy Shock enemies. If you are a Red Paladin, every enemy will get hit with Judgment, which will amplify the amount of damage you do for single target if it's one enemy, or AoE with your massive AoE damage. And if you add Wings on top of it, 1 minute cooldown, 30-yard range is quite good for a Paladin. Then we have Priest, which has a nice give and take mechanic. We have Blind Faith. Cast time of your spells becomes instant, and your channel time is reduced by 50%, lasts 8 seconds. Upon expiring, your cast and channeling speed is slowed by 50, but last time I checked it was 20% for about 8 or 6 seconds. For Rogues, we get Echo and Reprimand. Deal X amount of arcane damage to an enemy, gathering some of their anima. Awards 1 anima charge combo point, which lasts 12 seconds and is not expended when you use finisher move. Also, the in-game for the demo reads that all finishers refund a combo point, so you always have 1 combo point on the enemy as long as Echo and Reprimand is on them, so that's how it's supposed to work. Third energy, melee range, instant, 1 minute cooldown. Next we have Shaman Vesper Totem. Summons a totem in the target location for 12 seconds that grants 20% mastery to the closest ally within 8 yards. The totem prefers to empower you if you are within range, which I love because shamans and totems and buffs, oh, that's so cool. 1 minute cooldown, 40-yard range. Then we have Warlock with Souring Tithe. Deal X amount of arcane damage instantly and X amount of arcane damage over 18 seconds. If the enemy dies while affected by Souring Tithe, you generate 5 soul shards. If they survive, the cooldown for Souring Tithe is reset. That means you can maintain this dot on your enemy almost at all times, unless it ends up dying. 2-second cast, 40-second cooldown. Finally, with the Warrior, we have Spear of Bastion. Throw a Kyrian spear at the target location, dealing X amount of arcane damage instantly and additional X amount of damage over 4 seconds. Enemies hit are tethered to the Spear of Bastion's location for the duration, generates 25 range. So yes, this is basically Ursol's Vortex for warriors. Now, this is quite cool. We're getting all these new abilities based on the Covenant, and I cannot wait to see other Covenant abilities. But when taking a look at the Kyrian's class-specific abilities, there's a couple things that I noticed. First of all of them do arcane damage. That means if you have a class like Frost Death Knight, where your Frost abilities do more damage, the Kyrian effect isn't gonna make you better or worse. So it's nice because it doesn't feel like you need to play around that ability. You don't need to play around some sort of an arcane buff or buffing arcane-based spells. It's just an ability, and the ability itself ends up playing into most classes' playstyle as is. Take a look at Death Knight again. Death Knights right now, at least in BFA, play around trying to spend as many runes in a short amount of time. So Shackle and Worthy lets you still continue playing this playstyle, whether it is Frost Death Knight and the way that your talents are set up, or Unholy Death Knights and the way that your traits are set up. Shackle and Worthy plays into both playstyles where you're trying to use as many runes during a limited amount of time, and it rewards you by giving you this ability back faster, so you can have the dot uptime of this ability more often. I like how unique this is when it comes to buffing characters. Instead of doing damage, which some of these abilities just do straight up arcane damage, otherwise others buff them. You have the Droid, which buffs you with various buffs depending on your spec. You have the Hunter, which again, line of sight breaking. It sounds amazing in PvP. Monk, I love how they did go and customize every single buff for every single spec, combined with the increased mastery. But the favorite one for me is the Shaman. You can drop a totem that'll buff you, but it will also buff allies if you intentionally step away from it. Imagine getting a class that does the most amount of damage through their mastery, and dropping a bunch of those Shaman totems on that one person to supercharge them full of mastery. I doubt the Blizzard will allow Vesper Totem to stack, but wouldn't that be awesome if you could just stack a bunch of these totems on one person and have them obliterate the enemy with an incredible amount of mastery buffs that all these totems provide? I think this is super cool. I want to see more of Covenant abilities for the other types of Covenants. The one Covenant I'm actually super excited about is the whole Vampire Blood one, and I cannot wait to see what kind of abilities those get. I'm really hoping that rogues end up getting something cool from there just because I love the aesthetic of that Covenant, but I wonder how competitive these abilities are going to be. Of course, eventually some of these abilities are going to be stronger than others when it comes to, let's say, simming them against one another, which ones are going to be more powerful, but I'm hoping that they're going to be so close to one another that the difference between one or the next is going to be so little that it really comes down to a personal class choice of how you want to play your character. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching this video, checking out the Kyrian abilities. This is the first video of a couple of videos that I'm going to do for the new systems in Shadowlands. Thank you guys so much for checking this out, and I'll see all of you in another one.